I know what you're thinking. I'm an old hockey player and I'm supposed to be on the ice, but this doesn't look like the ice, does it? This is a beautiful beach called Solana Beach down in San Diego. And we're coming to you today, and I want to take you from the beach into your building. Okay, we want to talk about your culture, your team, your leadership. Let me share a concept. We believe with all of our hearts now that culture turns on language. Let me prove it to you. So I was, in my early days, in the late 70s, I was actually a player in the Washington Capitals. And we had what you would call a startup team, right? If business was sports, we'd call it a startup team. We were a young team getting better, but we weren't quite there yet. So here's what I learned about that dressing room. Teams that lose blame. So when you're struggling and you can't put wins together, you often look to deflect the blame. We used to blame the referee for everything, and we'd criticize each other for our bad play. Then think about this concept. I get traded from the Washington Capitals to the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal Canadiens came off 6 Stanley Cup wins in the 1970s and had never not made the playoffs. So a very successful franchise. I got inside that dressing room. Guess what that dressing room's key words were? No excuses. In other words, accept the responsibility and get it done. Wow, what a difference. Here's what I saw in the difference between the Washington Capitals and the Montreal Canadiens dressing room was that the energy that it takes to blame is almost equal to the energy it takes to assume responsibility. Here's why we want to tell you that story. Culture turns on language. We have actually built some IP. It's called the Thinking Tendencies Model. And it actually helps companies like yours understand the language of your culture and helps to shift it. And we want to come alongside you and be part of that. Our full day and half day sessions, our multiple day sessions, allow you and allow your team to understand the direction of your culture so that you can literally take control of your culture and build the culture that you want that will be highly successful. So teams, culture, want to work with you in that area. But what about individuals? Let me tell you that story. Individuals are exactly the same. You see, the language that people utilize actually increases their ability to have high success. A guy by the name of Abe Pollin, he was the owner of the Washington Capitals when I was there. Abe actually not only owned the team, but Abe and I became friends. I was his captain. So have you ever done this? I got traded from Washington, and all of a sudden, I haven't seen Abe for 15 years. About 15 years later, I was in Montreal and then Vancouver. This is interesting. My tummy said, call Abe. Have you ever had that in your life? So I called Abe. Abe said, Ryan, why did you call today? I said, my tummy said, call Abe. He said, wow. He said, what a interesting opportunity this is. He said, because tonight I'm winning the Entrepreneur for Washington, D.C. He's winning an award for being the Entrepreneur of the Year for D.C. I go, Abe, congratulations. I wonder if that's why my tummy said call Abe. And I said, Abe, you're going to receive a trophy. That means you're going to give a speech. I said, Abe, what are you going to talk about? He said, Ryan, I'll tell one story and sit down. I said, Abe, I'm salivating. You got to give me the story. Abe said, I'll tell you the story. He said, when I was 16 years old, I had 2 best friends, and all 3 of us had one objective in life. And that was we were going to make the basketball team in high school. He said, we shot baskets, we lifted weights, we ran, we were in great shape. He said, Ryan, everything was on track to make that basketball team for all 3 of us until 2 days before tryouts. He said, Ryan, 2 days before tryouts, he said, I chickened out. 2 days before tryouts, I chickened out. Abe said to me, he said, Ryan, that fall I stood in the stands and I watched my two best friends make a team and win a championship. He said, that fall I stood in the stands and I watched other people do what I should be doing. He said, that fall I stood in the stands and I swore to myself I would never chicken out of life again. If it was up to me, I'd get it done. Abe died a billionaire. Not the money's everything. Here's what I'm most proud of when I think of Abe Pollin. Abe, at a young age, chose successful language. Listen in to the language that Abe used. After a high disappointment, he didn't blame the coach. He didn't criticize his players. He decided to take responsibility and increase the change in his life through the language that he chose that would allow him to have high success. That's what we want to do with your company. We want to help them play their best game.